So, after all these months about hearing people just criticizing and saying so many horrible things about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it is now on Disney Plus, and now I'm reviewing it. And, it's a movie. Welcome back to the Hannahcast YouTube channel. And today, I'm going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the movie that I literally just said a few seconds ago. Why weren't you paying attention? I wasn't very excited about this movie, like, at all. Mainly the people involved in the film, like Evangeline Lilly, who's been like a very open anti-masker, anti-vaxxer. I'm just not thrilled to see her anymore. And plus you have Bill Murray, where apparently he's had a bunch of controversy recently, mainly stuff involving Lucy Liu, which is just horrifying to read about. And now even more recently, you have Jonathan Majors, who is currently facing assault charges. This movie is absolutely cursed. And while I still would not consider myself like a Marvel hater, because I still think when Marvel is great, they are great. And like, okay, how do I describe it? It's more so like, I don't think Marvel is out there just killing cinema or whatever. It's like the vast majority of movies that are being released are not Marvel films. I don't really see the problem just in general of these Marvel movies coming out. Like, these Marvel movies releasing, like, that's not stopping other people from going out and seeing other stuff. Like, Marvel films didn't prevent, you know, people from going to see movies like 1917 or Parasite or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Little Women, or even more recently with films like Everything Everywhere All at Once or Top Gun Maverick. It's like people can go see more than one movie. So just because these Marvel movies are coming out, that's not stopping other movies from being successful. But at the same time, Marvel's just not really been consistent as of recently. Like, I'm not gonna act like everything they've done is bad. Like, Spider-Man No Way Home, I still think is like peak MCU. Like, I didn't think they could top it after Endgame, and somehow No Way Home actually ended up doing it. And it's not just because it had like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, because if it was just like meaningless fan service and actors from, you know, previous films, then Jurassic World Dominion would have been a masterpiece. But it's not. It's a terrible film. Whereas with Spider-Man No Way Home, yeah, it had the actors from the previous films, but it was actually a very well-structured and very meaningful film. And also, I thought Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was just fantastic. I thought that movie was great. And I even thought Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was great. Like, I thought like the multiverse stuff was really cool, and the way they characterized Wanda was just like absolutely perfect. Like, this is really exactly where her character was ending up, and I thought it was just done so beautifully. But at the same time, Marvel has had a lot of misfires as of recently, from their shows not being consistent, or at the very least, having very disappointing conclusions. Overall, people just being all over the place with their opinions. Like, Eternals is one of the most hated MCU films out there, yet I really liked it. But yet, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was probably close to getting a Best Picture Oscar nomination, and I didn't think that film was very good. It's just a bunch of inconsistencies, and I feel like a lot of this has to do with the fact that Kevin Feige just does not have as much control over Marvel as he used to. Or at the very, well, I think now he's starting to gain back more control because they're not pumping out like 10 or 11 projects a year. Like this year, they're trying to scale it back, which, to be fair, we're only going to be seeing the true effects of that maybe like a couple years from now, because a lot of these projects have already been filmed and they're in post-production right now. So we're probably just gonna have to deal with a few more very divisive projects. But that's basically my take on Marvel right now. It's not that everything is awful, because really, it's not. And it's all been culminating into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This was the film that made everyone go, God, Marvel has lost it. They are the worst studio in the world. And, well, it's not good, but it's not the worst thing ever. Although, again, just the bad stuff does overweigh what good there is in the film. Let me just start with the stuff I thought worked. I thought Kang as a character was very interesting. I kind of like what they were doing. Granted, it's kind of hard to get into this character now, knowing what was going on with Jonathan Majors and how, again, he's been charged with assault and strangulation, and I don't know what they are going to do with this character moving forward, considering the charges have still not been dropped, and he's expected to be in court very soon, if he has not done so already. It's just a weird feeling. Like, on one hand, I like what they're doing with Kang, but on the other hand, it's Jonathan Majors, and while not as severely as someone like Jonathan Majors, who has been physically assaulting people, allegedly, you also have Evangeline Lilly, which again, it's just hard to watch her in anything because she's a horrible person. She's an anti-masker and anti-vaxxer, and weirdly enough, even despite me complaining over her personal life, she's just sleepwalking through this film. I'm legitimately trying to think of stuff that I thought was like really good. I don't think the effects are as bad as people are saying they are, although even then there's still some truth to that. Mainly any of my problems come into the green screening. Like whenever people are in front of a green screen or a blue screen, it just doesn't look right. Like the environments are pretty cool, like they're really cool looking environments, but for some reason the compositing of human characters into these scenes doesn't always work. And speaking of effects, I might as well talk about an aspect of this film that a lot of people are complaining about, where, again, I feel like I have problems with it, but it's not where you think, and it's MODOK. The moment they said MODOK was in this movie, I was like, oh no, please don't put MODOK in this film. MODOK does not translate well into live action. And then when there was like this leak of like, you know, oh, MODOK's gonna be like this robot character, I was like, oh, okay, I think that works a lot better. I think going the robot route, despite the comic purists complaining about it, I thought this was the right move, because you can't just have like a big face on like a little tiny body like that in like this weird helmet and expect that to look good. But no, apparently they did end up doing that. This isn't really a criticism of the CGI, because okay, I'm trying to explain this in a way that would make sense. I think my problems with MODOK in this film are very much like my problems with the characters in Cats. It's not that the CGI itself is bad. In terms of CGI, it's about as good as you can ask for something like this, like something like a MODOK or a human-cat hybrid. But the problem is that the overall concept of doing this thing that you're trying to do, whether it's a directorial choice or an art directorial choice, it just is not a good idea. Like, no matter how you try to work around this, it's just not a good idea. And I think that's what my whole spiel is about MODOK here. Like, again, it's not the CGI's fault. If you were gonna force MODOK to be in live action as he was in the comics, I mean, you did the best you could, and I don't blame you for it. But this does not work in live action. MODOK just does not translate into a live action environment. And this is another case of Marvel being so accurate to the comics to where it ultimately hurts the movie, because you are sacrificing the film medium in favor of doing something that may have worked in the comics. And this is my problem that I had with Shuri being Black Panther in Wakanda Forever. Like, you cannot make Shuri Black Panther because she does not fight. She's not a fighter. She does not have any kind of athletic skills that we have seen as a viewer. Yes, she has taken the herb, she's taken the purple herb or whatever it was, and that makes her stronger, but just because you're stronger doesn't mean you're necessarily gonna know anything about, you know, fighting or doing a bunch of flips and stuff. Like, it helps, but that doesn't ultimately mean anything. The only reason why they made Shuri Black Panther was because it happened in the comics, but that's just the problem. Just because you did it in the comics does not mean it works in a movie medium, or at the very least in this world that you're telling. And MODOK, despite, yeah, maybe he works in the comics and in animated stuff, he does not work in a live action setting. He just doesn't. This character should have not been in this movie, or at the very least, if you were going to bring MODOK into this film, you're gonna have to do something that would make the comic purists angry, but overall, it's the right thing to do, and it's just do the robot thing. Just have him be the robot. And yeah, the comic purists are gonna be mad, but guess what? They are not the majority of your film-going audience. The majority of your film-going audience does not read the comics. So yeah, Marvel's not really been on a good streak as of recently. Again, I still need to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. As of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, this really has not helped. I'm very certain that in the future, Marvel is going to bounce back from this. Again, they're scaling back their projects per year, and hopefully we're going to get some consistency, but, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it's not horrible. I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's god-awful. But like, overall, the film is just very confusing. I don't think many general audience members would get this film, and obviously they didn't, because they didn't respond to it very well, and they did not go see this movie, or at the very least, they didn't see this movie again. And overall, another thing I would have to mention about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is that, why is this an Ant-Man movie? Like, this does not feel like an Ant-Man film. This feels like some higher concept thing that they had in mind, but they didn't have any other characters that would probably work within this world, and they went, oh, Ant-Man. But overall, like, this is just a very kind of confusing film that, again, people are just not gonna get. It feels completely out of tone from Ant-Man. Again, I don't think it's a complete disaster, but it's like, it's really just kind of a nothing burger. There's just nothing really remarkable about this film. Nothing that is like abhorrently terrible, but just a lack of just anything good. It's still better than Jurassic World Dominion and Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, but like, So, I bring the question to you. What did you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Thank you so much for watching, and consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you don't, maybe I will turn into MODOK. Rattle them, boys!